You made this?
Feeling good, got some weed up in my wood, chasing dreams just like I should, letting go because I could. Used to have my...
Let's get right into it. Welcome back to another episode of JK Philly. Today I got Hard Knocks Hawks with Anthony. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, JK.
I want to just, get a little background for you guys, who you guys are, what your channel is, and just how you guys came about to start your channel, basically.
So Hard Knock Hawks was basically a group of 4 Hawks fans. So me, Chris, Leon, and Marco. We were just 4 Hawks fans. We just casually discussed stuff on Twitter Spaces for a long time, and we decided, you know what, we're just gonna make our own little podcast because we decided we wanted to just be more analytical and want to make more longer form content on podcasts and just give longer form thoughts. And that's how Hard Knock Hawks became to be. And we are eventually gonna start, I think, putting more videos out eventually. And I'm gonna get a webcam, hopefully, that actually works. So I think the Hawks are in a really interesting spot, and I think they are obviously a really interesting team with now a new young core that was completely different from where they were from the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago. So I think the Hawks are like I said before, at a really interesting spot right now. So it's a fun team to cover.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. I like watching the Hawks. I'm actually a fan of Trae Young and his game, even though I like the back and forth that he usually has with the Knicks, and even what it looks like as the rest of the NBA. It's just it's a nice story to go back and forth. But let's start from the beginning. I'll kind of go chronologically. It doesn't have to go cookie cutter 1, 2, 3. But if we jump around, we jump around. But starting from the beginning, you guys signed the number 1 pick. You guys had your number 1 pick, Reese Shea, I believe is how you pronounce his last name.
Yep, Reese Shea.
And with doing that, wasn't really a lot of buzz from him. But then also you got, at the same time frame, you're trading DeJounte Murray, and you finally move on from him. And most notably out of that trade, you get Dyson Daniels. How pivotal really has Dyson Daniels been for you guys this season in terms of his defensive game?
I think Dyson Daniels has been just a huge game changer for this team. He's not just been a big part of this defensive shift for this team, but just I was just saying a culture changer, right? This team has struggled for years in the Trae Young era to even be a top 20 defense, and the Hawks actually finished as a top 19 defense. That may not be impressive to a lot of people, but that, considering how badly the defense performed at points, especially last season with DeJounte, they were literally the worst defense at points. They were giving up 140-point games left and right. Dyson Daniels, what he's done for this team has been huge, especially since the point of attack defense was just one of the biggest problems for the Hawks for basically years.
Right.
Like, guards were just scoring on the Hawks just left and right over and over again. I think one of the most infamous examples, like during the end of DeJounte's tenure, was Malachi Flynn. I don't know if you heard of him getting 50 points on the Pistons against us. So
it's
stuff
against
like
you guys.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
It's always against us, right?
Wow.
It's stuff like that Dyson just helps prevent now, and he's helping the team just shift more into a defensive mindset. And at points, the Hawks were able to even become a top 10 defense. And hopefully, as our younger players progress, the Hawks can be more defensive minded as the team going forward, and even prove that maybe you can actually build a really good defense around Trae Young, which has been a notion that has been challenged instead for years now.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. I really like Dyson Daniels. I heard a lot about him when he was still in Australia or still in high school or something, but you could just tell, like, he's he's going to be special, especially on the defensive
Yeah.
side. So not paying too much attention to him when he was on the Pelicans, but when he definitely came over, he was making a lot of noise with you guys. So I'm happy to see that, you know, he's fitting in well and creating some type of culture defensively with the Hawks. But you know, as we move on chronologically as we go, looking like your next best guy that's coming up in Jalen Johnson. You guys move throughout the season. Your second best guy goes down with injury before All-Star break. How important can he truly be to help the Hawks make some noise in the East next year?
Jalen Johnson this season played just a really important part because, for one, for basically nearly 70% of the season, he was the only real power forward on this team. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen again, especially with the rise of Muhammad Gay, who has played just really good defense since playing in the G League. But I think his athleticism, what he can do in transition, and how he can improve his handle and his passing, I think he is going to play just a really big role if he's still going to be on this team next season.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main thing I want to see Jalen improve on is his shot. I think that has been, a big criticism of him for, a few years now, and how he operates in the half court, because generally for him, he's still more of a transition scorer than a half court guy.
Mm-hmm.
But the more that he can unlock that half court game, he can truly become this elite scorer that I think the Hawks need, because I think the Hawks now are just looking for someone that can just rise them up generally to that upper level of the East. Because now, you know, you have the Pacers up there, you got the Cavs, the Celtics have been up there for years, and the Knicks. The Hawks want to be up there now. And I mean, the Pistons, no one expected the Pistons to be up here now, right? So the Hawks are now trying to look for someone that can just rise up to that occasion. Maybe Jalen can step up to that occasion. I mean, at one point he was averaging 20, 10, and 5. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think, go ahead. My bad.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I was definitely going to mention that as well. Of, like, before he went out on injury, I was looking at his statistics. He's averaging 20, 10, and 5. So definitely to put him around a guy like Trae Young, he can definitely produce. And I think the sky's the limit with him, honestly, you know, with this team next year. But yeah, you mentioned a little bit earlier, or as you were just explaining, about these top teams in the East and trying to compete with them. I want to talk about one of those top teams, and I want to relate it to one of the trades that happened this year. Me personally, I don't know how you think, but I want to know. I think outside of all this Luka fiasco and, you know, some other, you know, not huge trades like DeMar and Levine getting traded, DeAndre Hunter going to the Cavaliers, to me, was probably like the second craziest trade that happened this year, because you could see how dominant the Cavs already were. And I thought that DeAndre Hunter, yes, he plays a similar role to, you know, like a couple other guys on the roster, but the way that he plays, I feel like fits perfectly with the Cavs. And I really don't like what you guys got back in Karis LeVert and Georges Niang. I do like those players. Is it an even trade for a team that, you know, can possibly compete to go to the finals this year? I don't know, but I want to know personally, do you think it was a mistake getting rid of DeAndre Hunter in terms of like what you got back? Or do you think, you know, it's okay because you guys kind of have a guy like him and Jalen Johnson already?
Now, you're speaking to a guy, especially because this is a very controversial trade, who was pro-trade DeAndre Hunter.
Okay.
Basically since, I think, 1 or 2 years ago, basically. I think DeAndre Hunter's, you know, defense and what he does on offense is, I think, overrated, especially on defense. And especially at times this year, I think, obviously, yes, he was having a very, very good year, but we drafted his replacement. It wasn't Jalen Johnson, it was Ricochet.
Right. And
I think Ricochet was already outperforming him in some aspects, like with scoring. I mean, Ricochet literally had, 4 30-point games And that's literally more games than Hunter has had in his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And with Hunter, he's had, I think, a lot of flaws with him. For example, Hunter cannot play the 4 at all. And during the Hawks' big 8-game losing streak, that probably costed them the 7th seed early in the season. Quinn Snyder put DeAndre Hunter at the 4 several times, but because of the fact that he really can't guard 4 as well, and he cannot rebound well at all, and this is something that you can even see in the Cavs. It just cost us a bunch of games, and it just overall just showed that he isn't really just well suited for the teams for what we I think generally need right now. And you could say that it may have not been a fair trade generally, but I will say that getting George Niang, Karis LeVert, it helped us get out that 8-game losing streak and allowed us to at least get the 8th seed. Because I don't know how this team would have been if they just kept playing DeAndre Hunter at the 4 consistently over and over, because they probably was just kept losing games.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a different perspective that I was thinking about, in terms of Ricochet, because what it just seemed from, like media perspective, of course, is, nobody cares about Ricochet. It's all about Stephon Castle. It's all about, Jared McCain and early in the season before he got injured. It's all about Jalen Wells all before the All-Star break. So you didn't really hear too much about them, but, hearing that he had 30-point games and that he fits a little bit better in terms of what Trae Young's offense kind of looks like is good to hear. At least it makes me feel a little bit more at ease of like, okay, that can be understandable then, that you already got a guy like that that's outperforming him in his rookie year. So his ceiling's, very high in terms of what he can do for the team in the next few years. But that was a trade that I was talking about for a long time with my co-host and some other people. Just like, I don't know about this one. Like, I feel like it's a little bit more outweighed for the Cavs, in terms of the return that they got, because DeAndre Hunter doesn't have to be that guy on the Cavs. So I feel like he just fits in so well with what they got going on. But I get it to understand it on both sides. But so, like I said from the beginning, I don't have too much to go over. I do want to know, as like the last question I'll really ask, in terms of what do you think the Hawks need to be successful right now? If that's in free agency, trading people on expiring contracts, or, most importantly, the draft I want to know about as well. But what do you think can really help benefit this team to make some noise in the East next year?
Well, they're gonna have a bunch of cap space because they traded Bogey, they traded Hunter. Capella is obviously expiring, so I expect them to generally get a bunch of impactful role players. Hopefully this year. They haven't really done that in a long time, since I think before the Eastern Conference Finals. Like I said before, I think the main thing is that they need to get someone that can help improve the shot creation of this team. Just someone that can just raise love. I think they have to go star hunting. I don't think they have a choice this year, because I don't know if they can honestly wait for the young players on this team to just develop at this point. I don't know if Trae's willing to wait anymore at this point.
Right.
Maybe he could, because it seems like from the interviews that I'm listening to, he seems like he's fully bought in, basically. But I don't know if he's going to be bought in any longer, if it's just like one more season of just going to the play-in or something with young player struggles or something like that.
Right.
So I do think the Hawks are probably just going to be looking for someone that is just going to raise that team, like maybe KD or Zion or somebody like that. I think they're probably going to go star hunting, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I definitely, on social media at least, I've been seeing a lot of, like mock trades to see what could be best. I did see a couple of Zions. What I did want to mention to you now that you bring that up, it had to have been posted by somebody from the Sixers. From how Paul George has been playing this year, I want to know your perspective on that if you've been paying any bit of attention to him. But I did see mock trades for Paul George going to Atlanta. Have no idea what we would get back for it. But what do you think about that? I'm just curious.
Paul George is one of my favorite players ever, but man, that is a lot of money, and he's really old. So I don't know. I if I was like the GM right now, I would drop. No, I wouldn't. I see. There's literally two sides of me. There's like the fan side of me who will just absolutely do it because I'm a Paul George fan.
Right.
But then there's the analytical brain side of me that will not do it because obviously he has not played well at all this season.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's just because of his health, and maybe he can come back, especially with Trey as a playmaker. But honestly, overall, I probably wouldn't do it. I don't think it's worth it. So,
yeah, I was talking to the Suns like a game or episode or two ago, and we were talking about Bradley Beal and Paul George, kind of in that same boat of like, Bradley Beal can, still give you points and still produce for you. Paul George, at the very least can probably still produce if he's having a healthy season, but it's those contracts and just the way that they perform this year that's just really not appetizing for anybody around the league. So I just think it's very hard to, pitch it to anybody. Like that's the only way that you'll get is like, oh yeah, I've been a Paul George fan my whole life. So yeah, we can try it out. We'll take the little hit on the money because we got it, but we'll see what happens with it. But I doubt it as well. I think we're just gonna be stuck with him for the next 3 years. But I was just curious to see what you say.
Yeah, hopefully he plays well for the 76ers, because if not, Morey's gone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
No, we really, a lot of it was on Joel Embiid as well, and having to get surgery and then not wanting to play back-to-backs and that whole fiasco, but that's a whole nother conversation. So if we don't do something next year, if we don't at least make playoffs like convincingly next year, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, that's a conversation for a different day, but I definitely appreciate your time. If you got anything, like of course your podcast or anything else that you guys do that you want to shout out, this is the time to do it.
It's Hard Knock Hawks. You can follow us on Twitter at KH Pod. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And remember, it's Anthony, Chris, Leon, and Marco. We're always on the podcast together, just chatting about takes. We may get into arguments sometimes, but it's a good time. So
awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate your time. Like I said, make sure you guys subscribe and like the video, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. Thank you guys for watching another episode of JK Philly. Make sure you stay tuned by subscribing to the channel.